The University of Florida has been accused of racism after students were aggressively and forcefully dragged off stage during the graduation ceremony. Take a look at some of this video.
I thought for a second when I first saw the video that they were dancing, like that they were dancing together.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't believe the guy made contact like that. That was like, I'm like, are they doing like the do-si-do? What's going on? But they were literally physically
dragging them off the stage. And you can see even some of the more almost like violent nature of it in this next video that I want to show you. You got to look closely and you can hear the people in the crowd reacting to it. So let's watch that really quick.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. So look,
sorry.
Just real quick. Look, I know that those ceremonies can last forever, right? And there's 10,000 people graduating from the University of Florida. But you cannot manhandle them at their, what a lot of people consider to be one of the most important moments in their life.
Right.
And wrestle them off the stage. That's crazy. You can't do that to anyone. And now, of course, witnesses are saying they didn't do it to the white students, they did it to black students. Oh, Jesus Christ, what have you done?
Well, that's the thing. So they basically implemented this policy to sort of move things along, right? Because these ceremonies can last a long time. And what's interesting, it's like you said, witnesses said that they weren't doing it to the white students. One of the witnesses said that there was a white student who did a backflip and he wasn't touched. He was allowed to do what he wanted to do. Now, one student in particular, Nafisa Atta, who was one of the students who was actually pushed off the stage while she was dancing, said she had planned what she wanted to do on stage to celebrate my story, all of my hard work I'd done at the University of Florida. I tried to do one of my stroll moves, but I was instantly like blocked by one of the officials on stage and they aggressively pushed me off the stage after that. So I was definitely disappointed. They took that moment from me because I can only get my bachelor's once. I mean, and that really alludes to getting at what you were saying, is that this only happens once for most people. And this is such a huge event in so many people's lives. And her family came from London and came from all around the country to watch her do this and to have her be abused in the act of having this huge life event. It's so sad.
So I want to be clear about this. I would be shocked if University of Florida dean or administrators were like, okay, we're gonna have this random dude on stage. Now make sure you only attack black people.
Well,
okay.
Yes.
But that's the problem with stereotypes and discrimination and racism, is that unfortunately it's in the back of almost all of our heads. So when it comes to enforcement, there's selective enforcement. So white kids are doing backflips left and right, and the usher doesn't think to tackle them or suplex them. And so apparently strolling is part of a tradition, which I didn't know about. But
yeah, so it is
part
of the Black Greek organizations, and it's a sort of a celebratory dance. They do it, they'll do it at different events and things like that. Sometimes it's in a line, or sometimes it's a dance and things like that. They do like stroll offs and things like that.
Yeah, and look, I wasn't in a fraternity. I don't know anything about that. I've sat through incredibly boring ceremonies. By the way, the dancing makes it better, not worse. Okay, reading the 10,000 names is the real problem at hand. Okay.
Yeah, seriously.
And I don't think those ceremonies are that big a deal. Like people are like, oh, your kid's graduating from preschool. Are you gonna go nuts? No, it's preschool. If she can't graduate from preschool, we're in a lot of trouble. Anyway.
Graduating college is a bigger deal than graduating from preschool.
And Hannah, that's where I was going with it. Like, but a lot of people think graduating from college is a giant deal, like a seminal moment and I know people who are brokenhearted because they couldn't walk, and hear their name because they graduated in the spring instead of the fall, whatever it might be, instead of the summer. And so to rain on their parade like this, you can't do that. What you can do is you say, hey, everybody, please don't dance, or please make it quick because we got to get through this. But you can't enforce it. You can't, otherwise you're tackling people. By the way, if there was no racial angle here, it would still be totally unacceptable. If they're tackling white people left and right, it's still not the right thing to do at people's graduation. Of course!
You shouldn't manhandle anybody. Like,
Yes.
can we just put that as like a base rule that everybody follows? I think that's a big component of it, right? Like the violent nature, the aggressive nature, not respecting people's bodies, but adding in the race aspect of it really adds another layer, right? And it's kind of what you were getting at, is that implicit bias and how we view Black people and how a lot of white people view Black people as more threatening, as more dangerous, as not having a right over their own body and how it is treated or how it is touched or handled or whatever it may be. I mean, we see that with police brutality, and you're seeing it in this case on obviously a much less violent scale, but violent nonetheless.
And it might be just that usher who thinks, well, if a white person is doing it, and he doesn't consciously think this, or maybe he does, I don't know the guy, but what happens oftentimes is subconsciously, he sees a white person doing it, thinks, oh, they're full of joy because they're getting their diploma. He sees a Black person, he thinks they're showboating. There they go again. I gotta put it, they told me to put an end to it. I'm gonna go put an end to it. I mean, if he punched a white guy while he was doing the back, not punch, that's too much, but he like tackled the guy as he did with these people in the middle of his backflip, then I'd say, hey, the guy's just out of control, right? But there does seem to be a second component here.
Yeah, and the university president did apologize, and he said that it was too aggressive, that it was out of line. But a lot of people say, like, too little, too late. You stole that moment from us. That was our one chance. And so, I mean, and the fact that he was on stage and probably witnessing some of this and didn't say anything at the time also sort of reinforces why people are so upset about this.
2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below. Then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.